The desert sun hung fiercely over the camp of Israel when the Lord spoke to Moses with command that carried the weight of destiny. The people had wandered for years, sustained by miracles yet longing for promise. Moses stepped out of the tent of meeting, his face serious. He lifted his staff and called for silence. "Hear the word of the Lord," he said. The murmuring crowd quieted. "Send men to explore the land of Canaan, the land God is giving us." A ripple of awe moved through the people. Some gasped, others whispered in disbelief. "The promised land?" A young man asked. An elder nodded slowly. Hope, long buried under desert dust, began to rise again. Moses gathered the leaders privately. His voice was calm but firm. "This is not a casual journey," he told them. "You will carry the hopes of every family in Israel." He looked at each face carefully. "You must be brave. You must observe everything." One leader asked, "What exactly must we look for?" Moses replied, "The strength of the people, the nature of their cities, the fertility of the land." Another added nervously, "And if the land is dangerous?" Moses paused and answered, "God has already spoken the promise. Your task is to see what he has prepared." The weight of the assignment settled heavily on the room. From a tribe of Judah, one name rose above the rest: Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He stepped forward when called, humble but steady. Moses placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are representing Judah," he said. Caleb bowed slightly. "I will not fail my people or my God," he replied. Another spy smiled at him. "We walk together then." Caleb nodded. Together, but with faith. At that moment, he had no idea this mission would define his legacy. He only knew obedience. Yet heaven had already marked his name for history. The morning of departure arrived with solemn intensity. Families gathered to watch the 12 chosen men leave. Mothers held their sons. Wives whispered prayers. Moses raised a staff and blessed them. "May the Lord go before you," he declared. As the spies began their journey, a young boy shouted, "Bring us back good news." The men smiled, but the responsibility felt enormous. Caleb glanced back at the camp stretching across the desert. "So many hopes," he murmured. A fellow spy replied, "Let's hope the land is worth it." Caleb answered quietly, "If God promised it, it is more than worth it." Crossing into Canaan felt like stepping into another world. The barren wilderness disappeared behind them, replaced by lush valleys and fertile hills. One spy bent down, scooping soil into his hands. "This ground is rich," he said in amazement. Another pointed toward vineyards. "Look at the crops." Caleb walked slowly, taking it all in. Streams flowed gently. Trees stood heavy with fruit. The air itself seemed alive. "It truly flows with milk and honey," someone whispered. Caleb smiled, faith rising in his chest. "Exactly as God said," he replied. As the spies journeyed deeper into the land, their amazement only grew. Everywhere they looked, life flourished. Fields stretched wide like golden oceans. Date palms swayed gently in the wind. One spy laughed softly. "We could feed nations from this land." Another replied, "No wonder God promised it." Caleb knelt beside a stream, letting the water run through his fingers. "This is not just fertile land," he said thoughtfully. "This is blessed land." His voice carried quiet conviction that stirred both excitement and unease among the men. Their travels led them into the valley of Eshcol, and what they saw there stopped them in their tracks. Massive clusters of grapes hung from thick vines, larger than anything they had ever seen. One man gasped, "This cannot be real." Another reached out slowly. "Look at the size of these." Caleb examined the fruit closely. "Cut one down," he said. When they did, the cluster was so heavy it required 2 men to carry it on a pole. Laughter mixed with disbelief. "This land is overflowing," one whispered. They gathered pomegranates and figs as well, each one bursting with color and sweetness. The aroma filled the air. A spy joked, "If the people don't want this land, I'll live here alone." The men chuckled, but Caleb remained focused. "Remember why we're here," he reminded them. "We are witnesses." He looked again at the fruit. "This is proof of God's promise." The others nodded, though some already seemed distracted by unspoken concerns. As they moved further inland, The mood slowly shifted. They began encountering fortified cities built with massive stone walls. Guard towers stood high, watching the land. One spy lowered his voice. "Those walls are enormous." Another added, "An army could hide behind them for years." Caleb studied the structures carefully. "Strong, yes," he admitted, "but not unconquerable." His calm tone contrasted sharply with the rising anxiety among the group. Then they saw them, the descendants of Anak, giants. Their height alone commanded fear. One spy froze. "Look at the size of that man." Another whispered, "We're like grasshoppers beside them." The giants moved with confidence, warriors accustomed to dominance. Caleb watched silently, measuring, thinking. "They are formidable," he said, "but they are still men." His words did little to calm the growing fear spreading among the others. That night around the fire, the conversation turned heavy. One spy spoke first. "We can't fight people like that." Another agreed, quickly. "And the cities? Impossible to breach." Caleb looked from face to face. "Did you forget the Red Sea?" he asked. Silence followed. Did God not defeat Egypt? No one answered. Fear had already begun planting roots deeper than memory. For 40 days they explored every region, valleys, hills, rivers, and strongholds. Caleb remained observant, storing knowledge like a seasoned commander. He mapped terrain in his mind. He studied patrol patterns. One spy asked him, "Why so calm?" Caleb replied, "Because God does not send us to see defeat. He sends us to see inheritance." The man looked unconvinced. When their mission ended, they prepared to return. They secured the massive grape cluster to a pole. 2 men struggled under its weight. "This will convince them," one said. Caleb nodded. "Yes, if they choose faith." The group began their journey back, carrying proof of abundance and the burden of divided perspectives. As they approached the Israelite camp, crowds gathered quickly. Word spread like wildfire. "They're back!" children shouted. Thousands rushed forward. Moses stood waiting at the center. His eyes immediately fell on the fruit. "Incredible," he murmured. Caleb noticed the people's faces, hope mixed with fear. The spies stood before Moses, Aaron, and the assembly. One stepped forward to speak. "We went into the land you sent us to," he began. "It truly flows with milk and honey." The fruit was displayed. Gasps filled the air. People pushed closer to see. "It's real," someone cried. "The promise is real." But then came the word that changed everything. "However," the spy continued, "the atmosphere shifted instantly. The people who live there are powerful. The cities are fortified and very large." Murmurs spread. Fear began rising like smoke. "We even saw the descendants of Anak." He finished. 10 spies took turns reinforcing the fear. "We can't attack them," one insisted. "They're stronger than we are." Another added, "Their defenses are impenetrable." The crowd's hope began collapsing. Mothers clutched their children. Warriors lowered their heads. Caleb watched in disbelief. "They're forgetting God," he thought. He stepped forward as panic grew louder. Joshua moved beside him, standing in silent agreement. Caleb raised his hand. "Silence," he called, his voice cut through the noise. "We should go up and take possession of the land," he declared boldly, "for we can certainly do it." The crowd turned toward him. Some stared in hope, others in shock. One man shouted, "Are you blind? Did you not see the giants?" Caleb did not waver. "Yes, I saw them," he replied. "I saw the walls. I saw the armies." He paused, then spoke with fire in his voice. "But I also saw the land God promised. And if the Lord is with us, no giant can stand against us." His words hung in the desert air, faith standing alone against a rising storm of fear. But Caleb's bold declaration did not calm the people. It divided them. Fear spread faster than faith. Voices rose across the camp. "We will die there," someone shouted. Another cried, "Our children will be slaughtered." The night filled with weeping. Families gathered in despair. Caleb walked through the camp hearing the cries, his heart heavy. "How can they fear giants more than God?" he murmured quietly to be why mourning. The fear had turned into rebellion. Men gathered in angry circles. "We should choose another leader," one suggested. "Let's go back to Egypt," Another agreed. Caleb stepped into one of the groups. Back to slavery? He asked. A man replied bitterly. At least we lived there. Caleb's voice sharpened. You lived in chains. But fear had already closed their ears. Moses and Aaron fell face down before the assembly, grieving the people's rebellion. Joshua tore his clothes in anguish. Caleb stood beside him, equally broken. Joshua cried out, "The land is exceedingly good." Caleb added, "If the Lord is pleased with us, he will give it to us." But stones began appearing in angry hands. The crowd surged with rage. "Silence them," someone yelled. Caleb saw hatred replacing reason in their eyes. For a moment, it seemed the faithful spies would be killed by their own people. Then suddenly, the glory of the Lord appeared over the tent of meeting. Light flooded the camp. The people froze. God's voice thundered to Moses. Judgment was declared. How long will these people treat me with contempt? The sentence was devastating. This generation would not enter the promised land. They would wander 40 years until they perished in the wilderness. Caleb listened as the decree echoed. His heart grieved, not for himself, but for the people. But then came words of mercy, spoken directly about him. My servant Caleb has a different spirit, the Lord declared. He follows me wholeheartedly. Caleb lowered his head as the promise continued. I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. The words settled into his soul like unbreakable steel. The years of wandering began. Day after day, sand and sun defined life. Caleb watched funerals multiply. Friends, leaders, fellow spies. One young man once asked him, "Do you regret believing?" Caleb shook his head. Never. God's promise does not expire. While others complained about manna, Caleb gave thanks. When people criticized Moses, Caleb defended him. God chose him, he would say. His steady faith became a quiet pillar in a collapsing generation. Plagues struck the camp at different times. Rebellions rose and fell. Caleb witnessed divine judgments that terrified the nation. Yet through it all, he remained protected, not by luck, but by obedience. A new generation began to grow, young men who had never seen Egypt. They gathered around Caleb at night. Tell us about the land. They would ask. Caleb's eyes would light up. It is more beautiful than words. He'd replied. He trained them carefully. You will face giants, he warned. One youth asked nervously, Are they unstoppable? Caleb smiled. Giants fall when God stands with you. As years passed, Caleb's strength did not fade. His endurance amazed everyone. At 60, 70, even nearing 80, he moved like a warrior. How are you still so strong? Someone asked. Caleb answered simply, The Lord preserves what he promises. When Moses prepared to pass leadership to Joshua, Caleb stood in full support. Follow him, he told the people. He was faithful when others were not. Joshua clasped Caleb's arm. We finished this together, he said. Then came the long-awaited moment. Israel stood before the Jordan River. The promised land lay on the other side. Caleb stared across the waters, memories flooding back. 45 years, he whispered. When the priest stepped into the river carrying the ark, the water stopped. The riverbed dried instantly. The people gasped. Caleb smiled. Just like the Red Sea, he said, God is opening the way again. Crossing into Canaan, Caleb felt the promise becoming reality beneath his feet. The hills he once explored as a spy now stood before him as inheritance. I'm back, he said softly. Years into the conquest, Caleb approached Joshua. He walked with strength, though 85 years old. You remember what the Lord promised me? He asked. Joshua nodded immediately. I remember. Caleb continued. I was 40 when we explored the land. Now I am 85. Yet I am still as strong today as I was then. Joshua studied him and saw no exaggeration. What do you ask? He said. Give me this mountain, Caleb declared. The hill country where the Anakites live. Joshua raised his brows. The land of giants? Caleb nodded. The Lord helping me, I will drive them out. Joshua blessed him and granted Hebron as his inheritance. And Caleb did exactly as he said. He defeated the giants and possessed the land. The promise he carried for 45 years became reality. and his life declared a truth that echoes through generations. Faith does not weaken with time. It conquers mountains when the time comes. If you like stories like this, subscribe to the Golden Bible Story page on YouTube. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. God bless you.